Hello everyone, this is Vinita and welcome to Hopeful Turns. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you the pattern for this crochet fingerless mittens. Now this is a very beginner friendly pattern. It uses just the simple basic stitches. So even if you are a beginner, you can just give this pattern a try. And it's really very simple, easy and quick. So if you're looking for some quick projects to do, to give as gifts, this is a very good project to try out. Okay, so let's see the supplies that you would require. Now for this, I have used a medium 4-weight acrylic yarn. And with that, I have used a size I or 5.5 mm crochet hook. Now for this, any weight yarn will be fine. You just have to use the recommended hook size. Now if you're using a thinner weight yarn with a smaller size hook, you might just have to add a few more rows. So the cuffs will be having more rows, as well as this entire part you might have to add 2-3 rounds extra. That's it. You can customize it for anybody and with any weight yarn. Now if you see here, this has been made with puff stitches. It's really simple. I have explained it very clearly, so I hope you will be able to follow along even if you are a beginner. So this has been made with puff stitches, and if you're looking for a puff stitch beanie to go along with it, you can click on the link that is coming up here. I have a separate tutorial on how to do a beanie with puff stitch. Okay, so yeah, this is the yarn, this is the hook that you would require. Apart from that, you would require a pair of scissors and a yarn needle to weave in all the ends. Now if you're looking for some other crochet patterns, especially scarves or blankets, beanies, anything of that sort, I have put a few links in the description box. If you're interested, please check that out. And if you are making anything from any of my patterns, please do tag me on Instagram or Facebook. I would really love to see your creation. Okay, now without wasting any more time, let's just get into the tutorial. So we'll start this with a slip knot. So to make a slip knot, take your yarn, loop it around your finger like an X. Once you have that, just pull your working yarn through this loop here. So this here is your slip knot. Now once you have your slip knot, we are going to make chain stitch. So here I'm going to start with 13 chain stitch. Okay, so this is my first chain stitch, chain 1. Like that I'll make 13. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so here I have got my 13 chain stitch, and this will be the length of the cuff. So if you see here, this here is 13 chain stitch. So if you want a much longer cuff, you can just go on increasing the number of chain stitch. Anyway, I'm starting with 13 chain stitch. So this is the length of the cuff. Okay, now we'll start our row 1. So for that, I'm going to skip the very first chain stitch. This one I'm skipping. And from the second stitch onwards, I'm going to put a row of single crochet. So skip the first stitch, insert your hook into the second stitch and make a single crochet. So to make a single crochet, insert your hook, pull up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both. So this is my first single crochet. I'll make a single crochet into the next stitch also. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both these 2. So this is my second single crochet. Like this, I'm just going to make a row of single crochet. Now if you want some help with the basic stitches, you can click on the link that is coming up here. So it will take you through all the basic stitches in crochet. So I'm just going to make a row of single crochet here. Now if you have started with a longer chain stitch, you will just have to add that many single crochet. You just have to skip the first stitch and then continue to make a single crochet. So here I have started with 13 chain stitch. I had skipped 1 stitch. So when I finish this row, I will have 12 single crochet. Okay, so 1 less than the starting chain stitch. Alright, so here I am done with 1 row of single crochet. We will move on to the second row. So for second row, I'm going to start with chain 1 and then turn my work. Now this chain 1 here that I have put is just going to act as a turning chain. It is not going to be counted as a single crochet. So every row will start with chain 1, which will be acting as a turning chain. Okay, now come to the very first stitch. Here again, this full row I'm going to put a single crochet, but I'll be putting it only in the back loop. So if you see here, you can see there is a V here like this. So this is the front loop and this here is the back loop. So I'll be working my single crochet only in the back loop. So we'll start. So this is the chain 1, just ignore that. This here is my first stitch. I'll insert my hook into the back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both. So this is my first single crochet. We'll do that again. So just insert your hook into the back loop and then complete your single crochet. So like this, I'll just complete this row also, and this row again I'm going to have 12 single crochets. So from here onwards I'll have 12 single crochet in each of the rows that I'll be making, and from here onwards we are just going to repeat the row 2. So every row we'll start with chain 1, turn our work and work a row of single crochet, all worked in the back loop. Now the advantage of using back loops only is to get a ribbed effect, so it will give a nice elasticity to the cuff. So that's why we are working it in the back loop. Okay, so I'm almost at the end. I have just one stitch left. This one here is my last stitch. This also has worked in the back loop like this. Okay. Now if you are a beginner, please do count your stitches before you move forward. Make sure you have the exact same number of stitches in every row. So here again I have 12 single crochet. Now I'll start the next row, and from here onwards you're just going to repeat the same row. So I'm going to start with chain 1. I'll turn my work, and again I'm going to make a row of single crochet, all worked in the back loop. So this here is my first stitch. I'll make a single crochet. Into the next stitch again I'm going to make a single crochet. So like this I'm just going to repeat it for a couple of rows. Now if you see here, this is the cuff that we are making, and we have this kind of ribbed effect. Okay, now I'm going to make it about 6 inches. So that's what I have made for this mitten. So I make a 6-inch long strip. So here I have completed a long strip. I have just worked single crochet row, and that too in the back loops. So you can see it has got a nice ribbed effect. Now if I have to just wrap it around my wrist here, you can see that the two ends are able to join. Okay, so you have to make a long strip so that you are able to join the two ends around your wrist. Now for me this measured about 6 inches and this length may vary for you depending on who you are making for. Okay, so once you are done with the strip, we will join these two together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a slip stitch to join these two ends. So this was my very last single crochet, and I'm going to make a slip stitch. So I'll just make one chain and I'm going to slip stitch. So what I'll do is, if you see here we have a front and back, so I'll use the back loop from this end and the front loop from this end. So if you see, you can just see just one line, but if you just flip it over, you can see a V coming up here. So I'm going to just take the front loop, just the front loop of this stitch. So if you see here, this is the front, there is a V going behind it, so just ignore that. Take just the front loop from this side. So I'm going to start with this end, take a stitch from this side, and I'm going to slip stitch. So make a slip stitch like this. Now take the next stitch. So I'm taking one stitch from this and one stitch from this end. So there is a small V that is the back loop, it is towards the side. So just take the stitch and complete a slip stitch. So like that, I'm just going to make again a row of slip stitches, and I'll have a total of 12 slip stitch. Now if you have started with a different number of chain stitch, you may have to do that many slip stitches. Okay, so I'll just complete the row of slip stitch first. Just take from here, take a stitch from this side and slip stitch. So I'm going to pull my working yarn through all the loops. So I'll just continue this. So here I have finished making one full row of slip stitch, and this is how this looks so far. Now what I'll do is I'll just flip this over like this. Now we'll start working on the top part. So the cuff is done. We will start by making 3 chain stitch first. 1, 2, 3. And now we'll make the puff stitch. So we'll make the puff stitch on this stitch here. So if you see here, we have got lines or the ridges. So this is one ridge, this is the second ridge. So the stitch close to it, we are going to put the puff stitches. So this is one place, this is another place where we will be putting a puff stitch. So we have got our 3 chain stitch. Now to make a puff stitch, we will first of all yarn over. So yarn over, insert your hook. So this here you can see a line here. So I'm going to put it just close to it. There will be a small gap. I'm going to put there and pull up a loop. Okay. Again, I'm going to yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch and pull up a loop. Now if you see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all these loops like this and chain 1. So this here is our puff stitch. We'll make the next puff stitch. So the next puff stitch will go on this stitch here. So you can see there is a line going here. Just close to that you will find a gap there. So here we are going to make the next puff stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and when you pull it up, just pull it a little bit higher. Again you yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch and pull up a loop. You will have 5 loops, yarn over and pull through all the 5 loops like this, and then chain 1. We will make again. So I'm going to put the next puff stitch here. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. Again yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through all the loops that are there on your hook and chain 1. Like that you can just go around till you reach your chain 3 that you have made. So I'll just show you again where we are going to put the stitches. So if you see like this, here is one line, here is another line. So just close to it, if you just see here, you'll get a stitch. It has a gap that is quite big, so you will not miss it. Just put the puff stitches on these places. Okay, so I'll just continue making this and join you. So here I have gone around the cuff and made a row of puff stitches. So this was my very last puff stitch here, and I have got my chain 3 at this point. So what I'll do is I'll just go into the 3rd chain of my chain 3 here and slip stitch. So just slip stitch to join. So I'll do it again. So this is my 3rd chain and I'm going to just slip stitch. So this completes round 1. We will start round 2. So we'll again start with 3 chain stitch, 1, 2, 3, and here we will be making puff stitches in every space. So here we have a chain 1 space. So in every space we are going to put a puff stitch. We'll start here, the very gap between the puff stitch and chain 3. So I'm just going to start the puff stitch. Okay, I'll just show you again. So this was chain 3. Here we have a space. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. Again yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through all the loops that are there on your hook and chain 1. Come to the next gap, again make a puff stitch. So I'm making a puff stitch here. I'm making chain 1 and again make a puff stitch into the next gap. So like this, in every gap I'm going to put a puff stitch. So I'll just repeat this. Now from here onwards it will go very fast. Once you get the hang of the puff stitch, it will work very fast. So just continue making a row of puff stitch and I'll join you once I'm at the end of this round. So here I'm almost at the end of this round. So if you see, I have a chain 3 here and one gap here. So in this gap also I'm going to put a puff stitch. So this will be my very last puff stitch. So there, this has been made. I'm going to make a chain 1. Okay, now we have the chain 3 here. So I'll go into the third chain. So this here is my third chain. I'll go there and slip stitch to join. So this will finish our round 2. Now this is what we are going to do till, I'll say, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Till I have a total of 7 rounds. I'm going to continue this pattern itself. So we will always start with chain 3. I have made 2. I'll have to make 5 more rounds. So I'll start with chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And in every chain 1 space, I'm going to make a puff stitch. So this is my first chain 1 space. Between the chain 3 and the puff stitch, I have a space. There I'll start with a puff stitch. I'll make chain 1 and again go making a puff stitch round. Okay, chain 1. So what happens is when you put a chain 3, you are actually starting you are actually adding 2 puff stitches in every row. So that will create this kind of a slant. So every round that you are doing, since you are making a chain 3 and you are starting 2 puff stitches just close to it, that will add 2 extra puff stitch, and that is why you will get this kind of a slant. So I'll just go on repeating this, making a puff stitch in every chain 1 space till I have a total of 7 rounds. Now that will again depend, I'll show you. So if you see here, till here I have made the 7 rounds. So you have to do it till it covers your thumb. If you want more, you can just go on adding a few more rounds. But for me, I have stopped at round 7, the stretch, and then I have stopped. So I'll show you how to do the other part. Just repeat this, making 1 puff stitch in every chain 1 space till you have 7 rounds. Okay. So here I'm almost at the end of round 7. So if you just count from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have made 7 rounds of these puff stitches. I just have one last stitch to make, so I thought I'll show it to you once again and just explain once again what we have done. So every round we had started with chain 3, and in every chain 1 gap we had put a puff stitch. Now do not forget to put the puff stitch on either side of the chain 3. So this is the chain 3, so you have to put a puff stitch on both the sides. So if you see here, so this was my second last stitch. Now comes the chain 3, but if you just split this open, you will find a small space. So do not forget to put a puff stitch on either side. Okay, so that only creates the extra 2 puff stitches in each round, and this creates this kind of a slant. Okay, so I'll just do my last puff stitch. So here is our chain 3. So if you just see here, you will find a small gap, and there I'm going to make a puff stitch. 1 second. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, again insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull your working yarn through all this, chain 1, and to finish it off, just slip stitch into your third chain of your chain 3. So this completes round 7. Now for me, round 7 is enough, so you can just try it on and check if this length is enough. So you may have to increase or decrease depending on your preference. So if you see here, my thumb gets covered, so that is what this is the length. So if I make, it will just come till this height, so I don't want it. I'm quite comfortable with this sizing. Now if you want, you can add 1 more row. So depending on the hook, the yarn that you have chosen, if you have chosen a thinner yarn and a smaller size hook, you may have to increase the number of rounds of this puff stitches, or if you have a bigger hand than mine, you may have to add 1 or 2 more rounds. So that totally depends on who you are making for. Okay, so for me, round 7 is perfectly fine here. Now we will just close this off. So if you see, this chain 3 should be right on the seam, will come on this side, and now you can just find how many puff stitches you should leave to have the hole for the thumb. So for me, if I have to compare with this one, this was my thumb space. So I have left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 puff stitches I have left for my thumb gap. Okay, so that is what exactly I'm going to. So what you can do is you can just try it on your hand, and I'm just going to, if I have to check this, 1, 2, 3, these 3 puff stitch I'm going to avoid, and these 2 puff stitches I'm going to avoid. So this will be my thumb hole. So just try it out and check how many puff stitches you will need in total for your thumb gap or hole. So for me it will be 5. So this is my chain 3. These 2 stitches I will avoid, and last 3 stitches I will avoid. So that will make the thumb gap. Okay, so we will start the next round. So for the next round, I'm going to make a slip stitch till I reach this gap. That is, I have to avoid these 2 puff stitches. So I'm going to, okay, I'll start with chain 1, and then I'll make a slip stitch in the chain 1 gap, and on my first puff stitch, again in the chain 1 gap I'll make a slip stitch, and on the second puff stitch also I'm making a chain 1. I'm putting a slip stitch. I'll come here into the next chain 1 space and on top of the third puff stitch. Okay, so here I'm going to avoid these 2 for my thumb hole. Now I'm going to start from here. So I'll make a puff stitch right on this chain 1 gap here. So this time I'm not going to do a chain 3. Instead I'm going to yarn over and directly go ahead and make a puff stitch. So here in this chain 1 I'll go and pull up a loop. Just pull it up a little bit higher. Again yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull through everything and chain 1. Okay, and then I'll just go ahead and make puff stitch in all the remaining chain 1 space till I have the last 3 puff stitch spaces left. So I'll just go around this, and before I reach my last 3 puff stitch I'll stop. So I'll just go around and show you how to finish off the thumb gap. I'm just making a puff stitch in all the chain 1 space. So here I have went around and made puff stitches. Now if you see, I have last 3 puff stitch left. So in case you are finding it difficult to understand, you can just find your chain 3. So here we have our chain 3 going, and 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 puff stitch that I have to skip. So I have skipped these 3 and I have skipped these 2 puff stitch. So I have reached this end. Now I'll skip everything in between. I'll find the very first puff stitch of this round. So this is where the puff stitch is, and I'm going to slip stitch this. So make a slip stitch. So I'm going to take this stitch here and I'm going to make a slip stitch in order to join. So this completes this round. So here we have got the thumb gap, and then you have to just make 2 or 3 more rounds of puff stitch. So I'm just going to make 1 puff stitch in every chain 1 space. So here again I'm not starting with chain 3. I will just go into this space here first, and then I'll make a puff stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook and pull up a loop. Again yarn over, insert my hook and pull up a loop, and complete my puff stitch. Come to the next stitch, again make your puff stitch, and like this you can just go around your round, making 1 puff stitch in every chain 1 gap. So I'll just finish this round as well. So here I have completed this round also. So this was my second last stitch, and the very last stitch will go in this space where we had slip stitched. You have a space there, so you have to put your very last puff stitch there. So if you see, this is our thumb gap. I'm going to put my last puff stitch here. So make your last puff stitch like this, chain 1, and now you can slip stitch. So I'm going to slip stitch on top of this like so. So if you see, we have made one more row. So if I have to compare this, I have made from here 1 2 3, so I'll make one more round of puff stitch. So you'll start exactly, so if you want you can add 2 3 how many more rounds you want, so it will just go on covering your fingers. So I'm going to start here just like we did, making one puff stitch in each of the chain 1 gap. So I'll just finish this round also. So this is very easy, there is no confusion, there should not be any confusion. You're just putting one puff stitch in every chain 1 space. Okay, so I'll just complete this round. So here I have actually finished 2 more rounds, because when I checked with this, if you see here from this row I have 1 2 3 4 rounds of puff stitches. So that is why I added 2 more rounds. I said 1 round, but from the thumb gap I have made 1 2 3 4. So it's very simple, just make one puff stitch in every chain 1 gap. So if you want to extend it more, you can definitely do that. So I'll just show you. If you just try it on, depending on your preference, you can add more rounds of puff stitches. So for me this is enough. Now I'll make last 2 rounds. It's just going to be a single crochet round. So this was my very last puff stitch here, and I'm going to slip stitch onto the very first stitch here. Okay, so this completes our mittens. Now for the very last 2 rounds I'm just going to put single crochet stitches. So chain 1, make a single crochet in your chain 1 gap as well as on top of your puff stitch. So if you see here, we have a puff stitch, go there and make a single crochet, come to the next chain 1 gap here, make a single crochet. Like that you can just go around and make single crochet round. So I have made 2 rounds of single crochet. If you want you can add 3 or 4, that totally depends on you. So I'll just complete this single crochet round. I'll make 2 rounds of single crochet. Alright, so this is how this looks. So here I have completed 2 rounds of single crochet, and this was my very last stitch. So now I'm going to just cut my yarn here. So you can just cut your yarn. If you want you can slip stitch to finish, but I'll show you another way to just do an invisible finish that will give a much cleaner look. So this was my last stitch. I have cut my yarn. I'm just going to pull it out like this. Okay, now we'll use a yarn needle to make the invisible finish. Okay, so here I've threaded in the yarn needle. Now what we'll do is, so if you see, this was my chain 1 that I have made in every round, so I just ignore that. This is my first single crochet and this is my second single crochet. Usually we'll just slip stitch into the very first stitch here, but in order to make the invisible finish I go to the second single crochet and I'm coming from behind. So I'll just take my yarn needle through the second stitch like this and come out, and I'm just going to pull it on a little bit nicely like this. Okay, next on to this one, from where our yarn is coming, there I'll go through the back loop and take it out. Now if you see, it is going to form a nice V like this. So you do not have that slip stitch join, instead you have a nice V coming up. So you can just pull on it till you have it as in the same size as the other stitches. You can just flip this over, and what I'll do is I'll go through a couple of more stitches here. If you want you can knot this down, but I'll go through a few stitches and hide in the tail end also. So I'm just going through a few stitches. Now if you want you can just split your yarn so that it is quite well hidden and your yarn will not come out. So I'll just hide my tail end here and then cut it off completely. So you can go through a couple of stitches back and forth and then cut your yarn. Okay, so this should be fine. I will just cut my yarn here and finish off it. Okay. So there, it's done. So our mittens is ready. So it is, you can use it in both hands, right or left. If you have to use in this hand, you can just push it through this hand, and there you have it. So yeah, that was a tutorial how to do this crochet fingerless mittens. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed making it. Now if you're looking for some other crochet patterns like slippers or beanies, scarves, shawls, anything of that sort, I will put a few links in the description box. If you're interested, you can check that up. And if you have liked this video, please do not forget to press on the like button. And if you're new to my channel, please do consider subscribing. See you in another video. Until then, bye bye. Thank you for watching.